Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me on this Wednesday, May 17th in the Locher Room. I'm Alan Locher. Today, I'm bringing you another Ryan's Hope reunion that salutes the 1980 to 1981 years, featuring Rose Alaio, who played Private Eye Rose Pearse, Richard Backus, who played the two-timing Barry Ryan, Gordon Thomson, who played the Egyptologist Aristotle Benedict-White, and Karen Morris Gowdy, who played Dr. Faith Coleridge. Ryan's Hope premiered on the ABC television network on July 7th, 1975, and it stayed on the air for 13 years until they took it off on January 13th, 1989. I am so excited to welcome Rose Alaio, Richard Backus, Karen Morris Gowdy, and Gordon Thomson to the Locher Room. Hello, hello,
hello. What a nice introduction, Alan. Thank you.
You're so welcome. It is so nice to see you all. Thank you all for being here.
Huge pleasure. Thank you.
Fans are very excited that you are here, which to me is always just so amazing knowing, you just backstage said how long it's been since you've seen each other. And it's that long for some of the fans who haven't seen, these characters. Take me back to that time. I'll start with Karen. Do you remember your audition for this role? Anything you remember about the audition or screen test?
I do remember it very clearly, and it was many, many years ago, but I was brand new to New York City, and I got a call from the casting directors because Catherine Hicks had just gotten the role of Tribute with Jack Lemmon on Broadway, and they were frantically looking for someone to replace Faith. So I went and read, and it was my favorite show. I was just still in college, actually, so we all rushed home to watch Ryan's Hope in college. So it was quite exciting to see all the cast members and to be able to even be acknowledged, to even be able to read for the part of Faith. And lo and behold, I became the Faith.
So you were a fan before you...
Oh, yeah. Oh, very much so. Yes. We all, of Delia and Roger and Jillian, absolutely. Big fan.
Love that. Richard, what do you remember?
I don't actually remember auditioning, but I'd done 3 other soaps, so I had a track record as an evil person. But in 1975, ironically, I was working at the American Shakespeare Festival, playing George Gibbs in Our Town, and Kate Mulgrew was playing Emily.
Wow.
So that's how I met her. And they said they were, Michael Levin was in that company too. They said they were starting a new soap. Little did I know, 10 years later or more, no, 6 years later, 7 years later, I would be on it myself.
Amazing. Gordon, you remember your audition?
Oh boy, I'm the writers, the people who created Ryan's Hope.
Claire Levine and Paul.
That's it.
Paul Mayer.
Claire Levine and Paul Mayer had worked with a director in Canada called Leon Major, and Claire had been to Egypt and fallen in love with Egypt, and I want to get this on my show, which, forgive me, Claire, I had a wonderful time, but there's no room for Egyptology in Ryan's Hope in the bar. Anyway, they approached Leon and said, we want someone to play an Egyptologist, and we don't want him to sound American. Can you recommend someone? And Leon did. And I don't remember how it happened, but very quickly I was approached, and I obviously said yes. I don't know how much auditioning I had to do. I don't remember that part, but I remember arriving and just thinking, oh, how sensational. I had seen, like Karen, I was not a fan because I didn't have time. I was working as much as I could during the day. But I was aware of the show, and I was aware of the caliber of the cast and the writing. So I was very excited to get this part. However, inappropriate Aristotle Benedict-White, and you live with that for a while, is, you know, the bliss was the work. And I had such a wonderful time. And I worked mostly with Karen and with a wonderful actress called Nancy Addison Altman, who I believe died quite a long time ago.
Yeah.
And those were the two actors with whom I worked the most. And I was just in heaven. I really was. Wonderful part. Wonderful part.
I love that. Rose, and for you, do you remember? It was after Guiding Light, correct? Or before? Oh no, we can't hear you now. I'm going to have you sign back in. That should fix it. What, you know, I wanted to ask first, where did your love of the arts and acting begin, Karen?
Probably originally from singing. Loved singing with my sisters. We sang all over, and I think that was a natural progression from into acting. I grew up in Cheyenne, Wyoming, so there wasn't a lot of theater. But I think that growing up in the country, there was a lot of imagination. And so I think my love of just pretending came from that. And my dream was always to move to New York City, and I got to live it.
And little did you know on the show that you grew up watching, which is
right, exactly.
It's really funny. There's a lot of people who in daytime were fans and ended up working on their. I mean, I worked in public relations on 2 shows that I watched, but I didn't act. But so many actors have. Richard, for you, acting, your love of the arts?
I was up here in New Hampshire where I returned, and I had a wonderful dramatics teacher coach in high school who did really wonderful work, and she sort of inspired me. Plus, there's a summer theater here named the Peterborough Players, and I would go over there and I'd see the same actors playing different roles from one week to the next, and I thought that was really exciting, and I wanted to do some of that.
Amazing. Gordon, for you?
Oh, I grew up in Montreal. My first language was English, second was French. And there wasn't a lot of English speaking theater in Montreal. But for some reason, I don't know how it arrived. I knew from the age of 18 that I had to act. And I think, like all of us who've done that and who've made a living at it, very, very lucky, unusual group, may I say, I think. I knew I had no choice. I think all of you don't act, or you'll become a second-rate alcoholic teacher in a second-rate school of English or something. And so I had to act. And I auditioned for the Stratford Festival. Michael Langham, I was 19. Michael Langham said after my audition, "Very good, excellent." I thought, "Oh Jesus, God has spoken," and it was a wonderful kind of stamp of approval from one of the most distinguished directors of classic theater in the English-speaking world at the time, and that nothing else has mattered as much as that in my life. And that makes me, I think, a very, very lucky individual.
Amazing. Rose, we can hear you. Oh, I think she's Rose.
Oh dear. Oh.
Oh no. Wait, Rose, can you
There
hear
she
me?
is.
We can't hear her.
Oh, I don't know what is. No. When you signed on, you're allowing the camera and the microphone?
Maybe like me, where the volume is on the side of her phone.
Yeah, possibly. Is the volume up on your phone?
And she's not on mute.
She's not on mute. Oh yeah, you just try it. Oh God, what? What is? We heard her perfectly before.
Yeah.
Right.
She's fine.
Way to go, Rose.
Rose, if you can hear me, I'm gonna kick you out again. Restart your phone. Try to restart your phone because that might help. Okay? So restart. Sorry about that, guys.
Oh,
It already
please.
happened.
Oh,
Technology.
I just want to hear from Rose.
Well, you know,
We'll get it back up and running.
technology. When you first arrived on Ryan's Hope, was there anyone who took any of you under their wing to learn the ropes over there?
When I first arrived, everyone was amazingly generous with their time. Helen, who played Maeve, Bernie, Nancy, Ron, and Tom McGreevy was who I first had a large storyline with, and Malcolm Groom, everyone.
Yeah,
It
Malcolm.
was amazing. And I think the other actor that came on at the same time as I did was Daniel Hugh Kelly, who was playing Frank. He replaced the Frank. So it was, they were very ingratiating, and knowing I didn't have a lot of experience.
Okay.
So it was wonderful.
Rose, I can hear you touching things. So
Oh, good.
there you are.
Good.
Yay.
All right.
Okay. So
Welcome.
going back, what do you remember? Did you have to audition for the role?
Oh, yes. I remember it vividly. Wait, hold on. This is terrible. I'm in the dark here. Hold on. I've got it. Okay. June 25th, 1980.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I knew it well because it was Jeffrey Johnson's birthday. And I had to go to his apartment and audition. Ellen Barrett was there. And it was his birthday, so I brought him flowers because I knew Jeffrey. I had auditioned a couple of times for him. And went through the scene, left, and they called me for the taped audition. And I was living in Brooklyn at the time. I grew up in Brooklyn. So anytime I had many acting jobs out of state. So I would give up my apartment, come back to Brooklyn, and then get another apartment after that. So I was in Brooklyn and I taped the audition. And I remember, I think one of the things, you try to think what might have gotten you the part. Mm-hmm. And I remember we were in a break and Michael came to me and he said, "Are you nervous?" And I said, "Not since the lobotomy." and everyone broke up, and I always used humor to get rid of my nerves, and I got the part, and they called me, and I was at home, and my mother was there, and I'll never forget it. The song "New York, New York" came on.
Uh-huh.
And she looked at me and she said, "Rose, you made it here."
I love that. Love that. I have to tell you, Gordon, Rose, Richard, and Karen's greetings from Italy. Giacomo is watching from Italy today.
Oh, thank you.
How amazing.
Ciao.
Yeah. Ciao,
And he had no
Italia.
trouble getting on, did he?
Right?
Exactly.
Much easier getting on from Italy.
Right.
Rose, who or what influenced you on becoming an actress?
I was going to be a nun. I was. It's the same thing. Discipline. But I went to St. Agnes Seminary for 12 years.
Wow.
Charm school for young ladies. And then I went to Fordham. And now St. Agnes was all girls. Fordham, and I was so intimidated. I ate in the ladies' room. And I didn't talk for an entire semester because I had a Brooklyn accent, and one of the classes was voice and diction. And I would go home with books on my chest and do breathing exercises. And it was co-ed. And I was enamored with the Thalians, the Dramatic Society. When I was at St. Agnes, they came to my school and did Taming of the Shrew. And I saw a couple of the students who were in that production. And I could sew. So I worked on costumes all the time. And I had been in plays every year at St. Agnes, but they were like assignments for me. You know, you memorize the lines, you do the part and whatever. My first part, my mother, I went to dancing school, and I was a star on the Christmas tree. That I remember. And that was it. I mean, I would sew and sit at rehearsals, and I found my voice. We had an elevator in the old Fordham University School of Education, and it was manual. Men ran them, and before they closed the doors, you had to yell down. And I practiced down instead of down. And so my speech was coming along, and I was happily stitching away. And one of the students came to me at the end of the year and said, I want you to be in Student Showcase. And I'm doing Dark Lady of the Sonnets, and I want you to be my Dark Lady. And I said, no, I'm not an actress. And they said, yes, I'll give you the line readings. I will give you the pronunciations. I will give you the movements. You'll be like a puppet. I promise you can trust me. Okay. And then another student said, I want you to play Salome. He wrote an original play called Herodias, I think. And so I was sucked because they knew I danced. And then after that, there was a Thalian banquet every year, and Professor Richard Byrne, he was my mentor. One of the students came to me, and they announced the next year's plays, and the first one was Romeo and Juliet. And one of the students came to me and said, he's doing that because you're going to be Juliet. And I said, no, I'm not. There's no way. I don't act. That was 2 assignments I did. And so in the fear that he would ask me to audition, I spent the entire summer with Romeo and Juliet, just trying to understand. I mean, I bought the lexicon, the Shakespearean lexicon. I learned the meaning of every word, iambic pentameter, but I didn't audition. I would hide during all the auditions, and I was sewing, and one of the students came to me and said, Mr. Byrne would like to see you in Shealy Hall. And I went down, and he was alone, and he said, Rose? And I said, yes. And he said, just read a monologue. And I said, no. And he said, you are Juliet. I was 17 at the time. I went to Fordham when I was 16. And he said, you are Juliet. And he had met my parents and my grandmother. And he said, your mother is Lady Capulet. Your father is Lord Capulet. Your grandmother is the nurse. You are Juliet. So I said, okay, I'll read a monologue. And I did one of the monologues. And I'll never forget it. I looked up, and he was like, and I said, see, I can't act. And he said, no, that was wonderful. I was like, oh my God. So I was Juliet. And wow. It went from there. And then I had like the lead in practically every production from then on. But
That's
it was
amazing.
Hey,
And I
I
did
played,
Summer
I played Romeo. So maybe
Of
we should get
course you
together and
did.
tour.
Sure, yeah. Who did it? Two old people did Romeo. Oh, I know. Oh my God, Pirates of Penzance. Kevin. They just did it recently. Meryl Streep and who did Pirates of Penzance?
Kevin Kline.
Kevin Kline.
Yes,
Kevin Kline.
they
Yeah.
did Romeo and Juliet. And
Really?
Ian McKellen did Hamlet. Oh, please. What's that
Absolutely.
whistling?
It might be somebody's
Not
email
yet, I
coming
think
in
it's
or
my,
text.
Oh,
Yeah.
Richard or Gordon and Rose, when you first got to Ryan's Hope, anybody take you under their wing, help you?
No, really? No, not really.
I did.
I'd been acting I began to work in 1964, and I've been acting that long when I got there. So I was not a newbie. I didn't need to learn the ropes. I'd done videotaping and I'd done film and all the stuff actors do. And I was thrown in at the deep end because there was no history to this character. He arrived full blown. I was talking to my friend Gary Tomlinson, who remembered me from Ryan's Hope, which astonished me. He said, "You just took the stage." I thought, okay. I had no idea. But looking back on it, I was number one aware of what a wonderful role it was, and also aware that it was probably going to be pretty short-lived, and it was. But I had a blissful time. Karen, did you remember? I remember getting encouragement. I think after seeing you and I had done Helen, who was the tersest Irish woman ever, and the only Tony Award winner, I think, almost, except Diane Carroll, I'd ever met. I remember she said, "Good acting." And I thought, God, that's nice to hear from you. Do you remember? I think that you and I just went to it, didn't we?
We did. I mean, we were just thrown into it, and it was a big storyline, and ABC backed it big time
Yes.
because it was
Yeah.
kind of out there. But ABC was fully behind it, and they just threw us in. Yeah, and it was very unusual for daytime.
Did Claire walk you both through her idea, or Claire or Paul walk you through what she intended?
No, I think they were just not really. I think they just went, and as they went, they started writing, and they watched Gordon and I and our relationship and how this all, and then I think that just kind of grew from there.
Yep.
They knew they wanted to do an Egyptian storyline, and but it kind of changed as they went.
Yeah, I've actually, as a matter of fact, I remember talking to Tom Lisanti, whose book I think inspired Alan to do this podcast on the show.
Yeah.
And Tom said, I think Alan Barrett was the producer at the time in the booth, and he said, they thought you were on drugs. I think because I got very thin, and it was only because I was so excited to be in New York City on this show, working with these people, these wonderful actors. And I just, who needs food? This was my food. I've never done a drug except for alcohol and a cigarette in my life. So they thought, this is how crazed I must have looked. But God, we had Marit Karam. Oh my God, poor Karen, the Egyptian queen, the sarcophagus that I do.
Don't I look like an Egyptian queen? Please. I don't know how they pulled that one off, but
Well,
yeah.
Did.
The costumes
Marit
were
Karam.
amazing.
Marit Karam.
Mhm.
And you looked so beautiful. And then I got to wear a white tie, which was very nice.
This is true. This is true. Mhm. It was a very elegant storyline.
Yes, it was. It was. It had, which is why it really had no place. I mean, it's like the Golden Girls should be in the kitchen with a cheesecake. You know what I'm saying? Well, the bar should be the point. The Ryans should be the point. And Egyptology. I remember at one
that word
time,
alone,
they said
Gordon.
we're going to stop it now after 10 weeks. Ellen wanted to have a little party for me, and I said, please, please don't. I hadn't earned the right after such a brief stay. wonderful time though I had. So I got the little brown silver box from Tiffany's with my name and Ari on the back and the dates, which was plenty for me. Plenty.
Oh,
I
she's
think
got it.
we all got one of those.
Yeah. I was going to the vitrine somewhere.
I love that. I love that. Ellen Barrett took over as the de facto executive producer. Can you talk about that period?
I can't because I was not there for the switch.
Let's see.
When
It was
did she
Bob.
take-
Yeah, it was Bob. His name escapes me now. When I came on, and then she was the producer, associate producer, and then she took over as the executive producer, and it very smoothly. The directors loved her, the cast loved her, the crew loved her. The studio was well run with Ellen, and she was an actor's producer for sure.
Gordon has expressed, but when Karen and Richard and Rose, when you look back on your experience at Ryan's Hope, what immediately comes to mind? Richard, for you?
Oh, it was such a warm company. There was so much give and take. It was really like being in a theater company and doing a little theater play every day. It was just great fun, and everybody was very kind and generous and very talented. I started out on a sub called Lovers and Friends, and that was like being shot out of a cannon, because I'd only done theater at that point primarily, and I told people it was like combining the worst of television with the worst of film. No rehearsals and no retakes, and you got very little time to do it. And the people who did it well were really wonderful actors, and there were some sensational people on Ryan's Hope while I was there. It was a great experience.
The pace of and I think, since we don't have that much daytime around, coming from theater, like you said, Richard, or from or whatever. And for me, not having that much experience, being thrown into it was pretty intense because of the pace of it. And the constant every day, you're doing a show a day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's pretty ruthless. I can remember I was working with a woman named Darlene Parks, and we'd do our scenes, and then we'd go off stage or out of the studio, and we'd wait in the hallway for them to call us back and say, "Do it again, do it better." But they never did.
Right. Yeah.
And Rose, for you?
My experience with Ellen Barrett was not a good one. I don't know. I was the last contract player under Labine Mayer. And I have a feeling I was in the middle of everything. Naive. I didn't know this at the time. My agent and Jeffrey Johnson quit because they were going to recast me after I was there a month. And he said, "I gave you the definitive, Rose. And we, by the way, we do mostly Broadway. We don't need this job." And he quit. And I didn't know that. My agent told me that months later. And I didn't know they were recasting my part. We all had August off, the entire month of August. Mm-hmm. And when I came back, Michael Levin said, "Oh, I'm so glad you're back." And I said, "Oh, me too." I don't know why he said that. And Ellen was a bully to me. She never treated me with respect. I remember I was coming up the steps going to taping, and she said, "I told you no lipstick." And I said, "But I'm not wearing lipstick." And she took a tissue out and she said, "Prove it." And I gave her, a clean tissue. And if I asked, I was a private detective who never solved a case with my heart, Tom Aldridge. God bless that man. That man. And they were thinking of writing incest into the part. That's how our chemistry was. It was one. He played my father, Pearse and Pearse Detective Agency. I have to show you this. This is what Tom called, this was on our mantelpiece in our West End Avenue apartment, 7 rooms. Don't know how we afforded the rent, but he called this the Maltese cockatoo.
I love that you have it.
Me too. They gave it to me. The props guys gave it to me. And but Ellen bullied me a lot. And I thought I couldn't act after I talked to her or Leela Swift. Leela and God bless Louise Schaefer. Leela would just give me these notes and tell me. I mean, I thought my timing was on, and Louise came to me and said she does this to every new contract player. She bullies you. So I was like, okay, I'll accept that.
That was nice of Louise
Horrendous.
to say
Yes,
that.
yes.
Yeah.
And then they asked me to take a cut in salary, and because why? Oh, because they weren't going to use my part that much the first year, but it would be a lot more in the second year. And my father, who was a union official for a candy union, said, okay, tell them. And I thought, you know what? I'm only going to be there a year. I feel it. And my father said, well, tell your agent to tell them if they're in good faith, then at the end of the year, they'll pay you retroactively. And that's brilliant. And so honey called and she said, that's a great idea. And they said, never mind, that's never mind. You don't have to take the cut in salary. And so I knew I was only going to be on for a year. And who was it? Oh, Michael told me that they did that a lot to actors. And Earl Hindman.
Yeah, Earl Hindman. Yeah.
Earl. He said Earl took the cut and he was on forever. He stayed. He was. I don't think Earl was a contract player. But he was on a lot. And my experience with Ellen was not a positive one, but I adored the cast, and as someone said before, they were mostly theater actors. I remember the first day of taping. I'm sorry, I'm going on too long, but it was at night, and we did a 6-pack every week. They would do 5 shows during the day, and then 2 half shows for 2 nights a week, so that they could close the entire studio in August for the month of August. And the first scene that I shot was with Tom and Michael Levin, and it was at night, and the studio was so dark. I remember that vividly. It was just so dark, and we got through the scene, and when I walked out of the set on my way to the dressing room, 4 people were lined up outside the studio, and I said hi, and they said, we just wanted to introduce ourselves. We're the sound crew, and we want to thank you because we didn't have one boom shadow through the entire scene. They liked my supportive tone, I guess. I don't know. and yeah, so Tom was Tom, I loved him. He said, "Don't ever doubt yourself, acting wise." He said, "Your timing is right on." He, you know, he said that I don't know why they're trying to intimidate you like that. So I was very confused, but I was brand new to the soaps. I had training from taped auditions, and I think I only had 2 taped auditions before Ryan Soap, and that was General Hospital and I can't remember. I think it was Edge of Night. I can't remember the other one, but don't trip over the wires. That was the big no. Gloria Monty, God bless her. She said that the most important note is don't trip over the wires. So I remembered that vividly.
I love that. Wanda sent a note. She said, "I don't have a question for you all today,
Wanda.
but I wanted to say thank you all for being here to look back at your time on my favorite show." Karen, Roy has asked, what are your feelings about being asked back for the last few weeks of the show and your character of Faith having the ultimate cliffhanger at the end?
Well, I was delighted to come back. I had been asked previous to that to come back, and I really thought long and hard about it, of coming back after I had left. But I became a mother of twins, and I just decided not to go back. But when Claire called and asked if I would come back and give them as many shows as I could, I was delighted. And I had no idea what they had written for me. Had no idea, but it was, I think it kind of summed it all up for Claire and Paul, the relationship with Pat and Faith. And I loved coming back and just being with everyone again. It was wonderful. It was perfect. I was so grateful for Ryan's Hope. It was just an amazing time in my life. I got to grow up with it because I was very young. I was 20 when I started the show.
Wow.
So that they were my family in New York City. That really, Helen became my mom and Bernie in a different way. When we came to work, that's the feeling you had. And then socially outside of work, we had that feeling. So I was very grateful. I still am.
That's awesome. Well, I've reached out to Helen. I'm praying she might sit down with me, but I don't know. Fingers crossed. Any memories of Helen and the late Nancy Addison that you can share?
Well, I have something.
Oh,
T. Rose.
yes, that's Nancy's favorite.
Nancy. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I loved her. She was an itty bitty person. She
was so powerful at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. She had such presence. Oh my gosh, and those eyes.
I just had Christopher Durham on, and he wears that to this day because of his friendship with her.
I saw that. I was up all night last night watching The Locher Room. But it was wonderful because it reminded me of stuff. I hadn't worked with any of those actors. Maybe Malcolm was on. I don't remember. But
I think Malcolm had just left when you came on, Rose.
You were just married. And I have to thank you too, because what during my time on Ryan's Hope, I told you at one point I didn't think I could act anymore between Leela and Ellen. and you came up to me one day and you said, you're very funny. And I was so grateful for that. And I loved, and you reminded me, don't take this the wrong way, Karen, but you reminded me of my grandmother, because my grandmother wore her hair in that roll that you did.
Oh, right.
Remember that roll?
Yeah.
And I couldn't get over how easily you did it. I just so quickly. We shared a dressing room a couple of times, I think. And you were just the best. You're wonderful. Just wonderful. I loved, oh God, the cast and crew of that show.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. I did get lots of training on that show. And Tom Aldridge, God bless him.
We just lost Michael. You know, Michael just passed away.
I know.
Mhm.
I know. Yeah. Oh, and from Guiding Light, my Quentin passed away last year.
Michael and Lisa.
And Lisa was a while ago.
Mm.
Roscoe, oh please, Bernie, everybody. Oh my God. And Ron Hale and I became close. He took me up to his house in Wappinger Falls, I think it was, and his wife Dude, and their 2 sons and their standard poodle, and they went skiing. I drank hot chocolate by the fireplace. There was no way they were getting me on the slopes, but I had so much fun with Ron Hale and the crew. We would buy the crew Rolling Rock, and they only sold it in Pennsylvania at that time. And Ron would get a case of Rolling Rock and bring it to the crew. Karen, were you in the show the day of Roscoe's first day on the soap?
I might have been. I don't
know.
know.
There? I think you would have remembered it, because all he was sitting in a restaurant, and they were saying take 17. And the entire cast, we went upstairs, and we were sitting around a table, and I don't know who thought of it, but they said, let's play cards. And so we started playing cards, and then someone else, and I really don't remember, went out and bought a bottle of Almaden wine. And so we were playing cards, and I only drank a little wine because I wasn't a drinker. But we were laughing hysterically, because then they got to take 27. And Ellen wanted Roscoe's first moments on the soap to be, I don't know, magical or whatever. And I can't remember the time we got out of that studio, but that was even the schedule for Ryan's Hope to me was torture, because they were saving money by having us all come in for dry rehearsal and then all do camera blocking on our sets, and they would repo the cameras and then dress rehearsal, notes, tape, and then
it was like theater, though. I love that, because it was like theater.
But
you know, it's like we all came together, we all rehearsed together, and they.
Well, that was great.
When ABC took over, they started cutting it, like stop, cut, and then they started, because they had money to edit. In those days, they would have money to edit, and we got there and we did that show like a play, and I loved it.
But it wasn't like a play, because for me, because we had like one scene, and then it was a through scene, but it was cut up in 2 parts, from the first 15 minutes, and then they would reposition the cameras to the other set, do their scene, another scene, and come back to you. And if you were in an emotional state, you had to hold that for however long
till they came back to you.
Pick up.
Yeah.
And then when I went to Guiding Light, it was like heaven, because they would dip to black, and all they would do, you paused for 15 seconds and then picked up right away. So there was a through line emotionally. So I never really got used to that, and we were all exhausted by the end of the day.
Richard, did you have any memories of Helen or Nancy that you wanted to share?
Oh, gosh, nothing specific, I guess. They were both wonderful. I had a lot of scenes with Nancy because I was the promoter of a rock star named Ken George Jones, played by Trent Jones. And they were having this love affair. So I did quite a few scenes with her. She was a wonderful actress, just fabulous.
From Egyptologist to rock star.
Yeah. He was a rock star. He was dying of inoperable tumors. And that was what he was
Yes.
supposedly dying of. And Trent was very upset that he had to die because he didn't want to stop working on the show. But he came in one day with T-shirts that said Ken George Jones and the Inoperable Tumors, and made it into his rock group.
That is so funny. Gordon, I'd love you to share memories of Dynasty, of Adam Carrington.
As a matter of fact, I was thinking about this. Karen actually alerted my mind to think about it properly here. ABC at the time had the talent development program, and Tom Hanks was a part of it. John James, who was on Dynasty and the Colbys, a part of it. Donna Mills, and I was a part of it. And I think it must have happened because who knows soap operas in Canada didn't exist at the time. And it had to be ABC's Talent Development Corporation program, whatever, that ABC saw this, put me on it. And I literally, within a year, I was doing a screen test with Joan Collins. I think because of Ryan's Hope, because of the work I did on Ryan's Hope with this wonderful cast, wonderful script. The scripts were so good. I mean, it was really juicy stuff. Egyptologist notwithstanding, it was really juicy stuff. And it was, I think that is what booted me out of Canada, a very hard thing to do in those days. Immigration was a big problem. And I think that's what it was. It was that projected me to Aaron Spelling and Joan. She did, looking back on it, it was astonishing that an actor of her stature at the time, she saved Dynasty, truly. Aaron said that publicly. She saved my show.
I remember her walking in with that hat on in the courtroom.
Yep. And anyway, she'd done the show for the year and she'd become this enormous star. And for some reason, they convinced her to do a test with me. Because when I approached the soundstage to do the test, she emerged dressed up as a madam in the turn of the century brothel, movie of the week called The Wild Women of Chastity Gulch. And there she was looking fabulous. And hello, Miss Collins, I'm Gordon Thomson. Oh, yes. You heard a test for the part of my son. It's ridiculous, darling. You're much too old. I thought, okay, maybe. And we went in. I was 37, but my DNA was very good to me. I looked 24. And anyway, we did the test. And I think that's when she figured out, yes, he can act. He can do the job. Because there was never any question afterwards. But the fact that the star of the show, the name actor on the show was Joan, came down to do a screen test with a complete unknown. It was, I don't know how, maybe Aaron said, do this, sweetheart, or something. But that's how it began. And I had the best time. It wasn't, the acting was generally pretty good. I don't think I've ever come across a cast that was, as we've all said, generous, gifted, such good-natured people, anything to help, ran lines till we're blue, because you have to, hiding scripts behind cushions and stuff like that. You do all those things because you have to give a finished performance a day, which is unheard of. I have such enormous respect for actors who do, I respect myself, actually. I've done a lot of soaps, and I've enjoyed every single one. It's the pressure. Like a lot of us, I think, I thrive under pressure. It turns me on. And yes, we can do this. We just ran it. Okay, here we go. And off you go. And somehow, all the rhythm, all the necessary pauses and beats, they all sort of fit. And that's breathtaking. Breathtaking. When people say soap operas and sneer, I think, what do you know about it?
Absolutely.
Indeed, yeah.
And And Richard, you've had experience in writing. The writing that they have to turn out on a daily basis was beyond.
Yeah.
We could all come in and just recite these lines, but the people that had to come up with this and the storyline, I'm just
265 days a year for soap operas. 265 shows a year, basically. About
It's
crazy.
daunting.
Yeah,
An actress from Edge of Night. I don't know. I was at some benefit or something. She played Raven. I can't remember her real name.
I know. Yes, I'll tell you in a second.
Okay. And she came up to me and she grabbed me. She said, "I hate you." And I said, "Okay, thank you." And why? And she said, "Because you're on Ryan's Hope. And those writers write the way people talk."
Sharon Gabay.
And it was true, because even though we had monologues galore and 11, 13-page scenes, they wrote the way people really talked. And it was in a real place in New York City. And I still live 2 blocks from the 53rd Street studio.
I love that.
And Richard, I don't know if you remember, chicken livers and sour cream over rice.
Oh, yeah.
You remember?
I do.
You were taking a cooking class.
Yes, I was.
And
I hosted a party in my tiny apartment on West 50th Street for some of the people I was working with. I know Tamara Grady came and Laura Rakowitz and a few other people. And I told them they all had to come. They all had to come and read a poem. And because I've been taking this cooking course, I made all these fancy cakes with lady fingers and everything else. And it was a fun evening, but they were sort of nonplussed to have to read a poem. It sort of threw them, I think.
Richard, I grew up watching As the World Turns and then worked on the show for 13 years in public relations. What do you remember about CoHead Writing, and what were some of your favorite stories that you...
Oh, gosh. One of the things I remember quite brilliantly, quite vividly, was shortly after I'd started writing, and I was writing scripts initially, and then I switched to writing breakdowns. Douglas Marland decided to have a meeting at the studio, and the monitor was on. We were having this meeting, and Larry Brigman and Bob Hughes were on, wonderful actors, and they were doing a script of mine. And one of them said, "Can you believe this shit?" Something like that. And I said, "Oh, God." And Douglas just said, "Oh, turn that off." And of course, having been an actor on soaps, I know that's what you do. You come in the morning, you say, "This is awful stuff, just terrible. I'll try to make it work," so that you can justify if you do it well, then you made it work. If you didn't do it well, you told you in the morning it wasn't any good. And then Douglas died very suddenly of an aneurysm, and Juliet Packer and I were kicked up to head writers, and I had never written for soaps before. Douglas had written pretty much everything. He had his hands in everything, and I thought that's how you had to do it. So we tried to do too much, and I lasted for about 1.5 years, and then I was totally burned out and thought I would never write again, but turned out I did. But I would not want to be a head writer. I'm terrible at head writing.
Yeah, the work that goes into that is just beyond to write a whole show. Karen Freeman was asking, well, first of all, he said you should have received Emmy recognition for your role. And I know that people wanted to ask about your drunk period and what it took.
That wasn't acting. I'm sorry. What was the question, Alan?
Just what it took to come to that place for you.
It was, you know what? It was actually easier for me because it wasn't Sweet Faith. It gave me something to do. Mrs. Faith was perfect, and that was hard for me to play. She was the good one. So it gave me something to do. It gave me some meat, and I loved it. I loved it. And it gave me a reason to fight with Roger and Delia and everybody. You know.
Meat is good. Meat is good.
Yeah.
Rose, you had mentioned Guiding Light was your favorite. Can you share memories of Lisa Brown and Michael Tylo?
We laughed all the time. Michael, when I taped the audition, and God bless Doug Marland, he was the head writer, and it was his script, and it was so funny because my first word in the scene was an Italian curse, which was a pretty bad curse. You couldn't say it on television, but I loved him for it, and I entered yelling at Quentin, and I did the scene with Michael, and I had to flirt with him. We had been engaged years ago, and I came back to torture him, of course, but I had to seduce him, and I did the itsy bitsy spider up his sleeve, and it was a very volatile scene. And I remember they put you in the makeup room with all the other actresses who are taping and then you watch their audition. And there was this one actress, I don't know her name. I wish I remembered because she was great. And she had been in a movie. And I said, I'll never get this part. There's no way I'll get this part. But I did the scene with Michael as best I could, and I'm Italian, and I grew up in a very volatile family. You can't get more volatile than Brooklyn Italians, except maybe Bronx Italians. And so finished the scene, and I left, and I was doing a temp job. And I was a receptionist at Yankelovich, Skelly, and White.
God.
Demographics. They did demographics, which I didn't agree with because I see you pigeonhole people. That's wrong. And a side note, the cleaning woman for Yankelovich, Skelly, and White came in to clean the office, and she looked at me, and she said, "You're that detective from Ryan's Hope." And I said, "Yes, I'm on a case. Don't tell me." But I was there. I was working when my agent called and told me I got the job. Do you know I was a temp. They gave me a going away party.
Wow.
They
That's
were
awesome.
so wonderful there. Mrs. Skelly, Florence Skelly, what a lady.
Rose, you said you were going to talk baseball with Karen.
Oh, Karen. Kurt. He was, okay. So in 1955, the Brooklyn Dodgers left Brooklyn and betrayed my father and everybody else in Brooklyn. I was 4. He took me to my first baseball game when I was 4. And it was the Brooklyn Dodgers at Ebbets Field. And my favorites were Jackie Robinson, Pee Wee Reese, and Duke Snider. Okay, now skip to 1962, New York Mets. And he waited for a doubleheader against the Dodgers because they betrayed us. And Sandy Koufax and Don Drysdale were pitching. And Gil Hodges hit a grand slam home run. They made a triple play, and they lost both games. And they couldn't win to save their lives when they first started. Casey Stengel. So, yes, I am a Mets fan. And Kurt, your husband, Keith Hernandez, Gary Cohen, and Ron Darling mentioned him several times as as being his boss.
Mhm.
Their boss, he hired them, and I was like, oh my God, Karen, you were a newlywed, I believe, when I came on, 1980. Were you a newlywed?
Brand new. Mhm, mhm, mhm.
Yeah. And still hanging in there. Anyway, if he has extra season tickets for giveaway days, I'm available.
Well, he just retired. So now I'm his boss. So there you go.
Oh dear. Oh, good. Finally, that's good.
Karen, do you miss acting?
Yes, I do. But not enough to really, in acting, you have to really stay on it all the time and continually study and push. And I just had to make a decision either do that or raise my children. And I decided my children came first. I do miss it though. I do. I do miss performing. I do miss the whole interaction with people. But
And any chance your kids are following in mom's footsteps?
no, not a bit. They're all very incredible professionals and done very well. So no, and they always say, "Mom, you're such an actress." So I guess I still am acting as being a mom, and a grandma. Yeah, So.
I love that. I love that. Is there anything I didn't ask about Ryan's Hope that you'd like to share?
I think the farewell parties were extraordinary.
Mhm.
I had been fired from 3 soaps by the time I got to Ryan's Hope, and you were just kicked out the door. They didn't say anything to you. And Claire and Paul always threw a party,
Mhm.
and they threw a party for me, and they gave me one of those Tiffany round boxes, which was lovely. And I can remember Sarah Felder, who played Siobhan, was given a farewell party when they decided to recast her because they didn't think she could play a romantic lead. And she was very upset. And she let them know how upset they were at the party. And they still gave her the Tiffany box, and they let her vent and said goodbye.
Mhm.
I
They were
didn't go.
really stand-up people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't go. I said my goodbyes personally to everyone, and I called Michael. Oh my gosh, I forgot his last name.
Levin?
No.
Corbett.
Yes,
Corbett?
Michael Corbett.
Oh,
I
Michael
loved him.
Corbett,
He
yeah.
was so great. And because they were going to give us a combined going away party, and I called him and I said, I'm not going. I didn't want to go. It wasn't. I didn't feel. I don't know. It was like they fire you and then they give you a party. So it was. So I called Michael and he said, that's funny. I have something that day too, so I'm not going either. And Louise Schaefer called me afterwards, and I told them, I said, please enjoy the party. Everyone, the camera people and the sound people, and Louise called me after that, and she said, I want to thank you because they had stopped giving out the silver boxes after I left, I believe. She said, and I agree totally with you. They shouldn't give you a party after they fire you. and it was bad in those days, but no one thought to file complaints. They fired the costume designer, David. I can't remember his last name.
David Dangle?
Yeah, at the Christmas party.
Alex Tolkien, I think.
It was Alex.
No, Alex was after the female who I think bought costumes from thrift shops. There was a female in between David and Alex, and Alex was brilliant. But they fired him ungraciously at the Christmas party, which was not very nice.
Not all.
I mean, they were kind of, I don't know. When I heard about Scott Rudin on Broadway, and I met him once, and Harvey Weinstein, bullies. They were bullies. but everyone was so happy to be, working, and they let everything slide. Not anymore, which is wonderful.
Thank you, all of you, so much for being here. I'm so glad we got technology to work for us.
Thank you, Alan, for your patience.
I'm proud of you, Gordon.
I only know this much sign language. I know hi. That's it.
Yeah, I love that you did sign language. Let's do a quick photograph. If everyone smiles on the count of 3.
I take my glasses off.
I do that all the time too, Karen. I don't like my glasses on. 1, 2, and 3. Thank you all so much. Really.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Alan.
All of you.
It was so good to see
Really
you.
wonderful.
Karen, especially good to see you.
Same. And you, Richard and Rose. Thank you.
Absolutely. Great to see you.
My day.
Stay well, everybody.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody, for joining. Rose Alaio, Richard Backus, Karen Morris Gowdy, and Gordon Thomson, thank you for joining me today. And thank you to Tom Lasanti for bringing this group together again. Please do yourself a favor and pre-order Tom's book, Ryan's Hope, an Oral History of Daytime's Groundbreaking Soap. Go behind the scenes of the show that changed daytime drama with the in-depth, intimate, and entertaining cultural history in the words of its cast, crew, and creators. Please join me on this Friday, when As the World Turns alum and my friend Bronson Pickett joins me live. If you haven't yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, you can do so down below. Turn on the notifications for reminders of all upcoming shows. And please, everybody, have a great evening and stay safe. I will see you on Friday.